I guess Dylan was going to be there anyway, but
I don't know. The way this is going, Dylan might not be there. Streamers are the worst.
yeah, I know.
And now Dylan's doing news, so
It's the streamers that don't have fucking day jobs too that can never make anything, and you're like, what the fuck do you have going on?
they like slept till 3 p.m. and
So I couldn't get my 13 daily league games done in time. Sorry, it ran over. I should have shaved before this. I have my 12-year-old's attempt at facial hair going on right now.
No one can see that. It's short ass facial hair. You're doing half facial hair. Shut up.
No, I literally already said that. I beat you to the punch on that one. I have the 12-year-old's attempt at facial hair because that's all I can do. Just the little scruff on the chin and this weird mustache-like thing that doesn't grow in the middle. I got the reverse Hitler.
Oh, reverse Hitler.
I grow it that way to prove how not racist I am.
I'm very tempted to drag you in me is rant about.
Oh, that was
Robot.
roboted. It's some Arkansas internet hitting. Yeah.
No, I did not.
That's the first time I've ever heard you robot. So yeah.
Yeah, I know nothing.
Oh my God, he's getting DDoS. They're trying to take the hippy dippy down.
Frank for Liberty's back.
Yeah, it's just robot noises.
It is a mess. Josiah's camera's freezing. Danabo's unintelligible.
That's normal. It's the robot stuff.
Danabo, you're supposed to be the IT guy.
I'm still a robot.
Maybe Discord's fucking up.
Yeah, probably.
No, it's just Josiah thinking the bird eyes. Rude.
I know. He got frozen on the
purely from my boy Lactoid.
Okay, I think it's
robots. Oh.
yeah, it's definitely Discord because it's just tossing the roboting around the circle. But now he's good.
How's
You
my
got
voice?
full HD, Josiah. Your voice is good.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Castley, Kevin, Mr. Sir.
Yo.
There's the voice.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah, like I'm such a boomer. I didn't realize there's a separate hippy dippy waiting room. Last time I was here was like 2 years ago, and you guys were doing it through Dylan's Discord. So that's where I was. So oops.
I'm trying to keep all the content creators away from the riffraff, so you're all in your separate server away from
God.
apart from
100
things.
green M&Ms.
I love Riff Raff.
All right. Dylan says he's ready for you, Jeb. Let me drag you in.
Sweet.
Have fun.
Let's go.
All right. They're going to do commentary for about 10 minutes. Who have we got? Pisco's here. So we're missing right corner.
He's on his way.
Cool. I can't count one. There's someone else. Who is it? Who else am I missing?
Hutch.
Hutch, who's live on his own thing, so he'll be here. Yeah. You all got very quiet. Was
Saving our energy for the shouting.
there's nobody here that shouts, Kevin.
Listen, I can get pretty heated with my boy Lactoid. Okay.
Oh, Kevin, Lactoid asked if you were a communist, and I was like, I don't know. He's Kevin.
Wait, I don't know who Lactoid is. What's Lactoid's politics?
He's a right-wing libertarian.
He's a Trump supporter. He'll tell you he's not a Trump supporter. He's a Trump supporter.
100%.
Okay.
Nice guy, though.
Like all right-wing libertarians, Trump supporter. Right, Cam?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Pisco, is your
So
camera working? sir?
We never sorted it out. Are you a communist, Kevin?
He's Kevin.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, right? I would say I'm a progressive nationalist. I'm sympathetic to a lot of communist systems. I think a better description would be socialism with Canadian characteristics. Like I don't believe that human nature is capable of evolving to a point where at any time in the near future we would be able to transition to a stateless society. We evolved in scarcity and competition, and we will remain as such for a very long time, even if we rid scarcity. And that impulse, and I was saying this in a space the other day, that impulse is probably good for our survival, because even if we had the whole world as one sort of system, we want that competition in case aliens come around. So we don't want to be vulnerable. So I think competition is good. The key point to note is that it's better to channel that into sports and other sorts of athletic endeavors and such, as opposed to, killing each other over like religions and stuff, that sort of thing. So.
And you support Trump?
Generally, yes, but I've also been supportive of Biden, and I've also been critical of the both of them.
Interesting.
So, like the MAGA Biden thing, that was a meme, but it was also rooted in the reality that, yes, Biden was the most pro-labor Democrat elected since FDR, and Trump was the most pro-labor Republican ever elected. So from the standpoint of labor, they're both actually fairly populist and protectionist. Now, that being said, Trump is clearly more protectionist on rhetoric. Biden's been more protectionist in policy. In this election, though, Trump is running on a more protectionist stance than Harris is, which I think is interesting. Harris is not as pro-labor as Biden. So.
And you support protectionism, I assume?
Well, protectionism is essentially the safeguard of the middle class, and the working class. So it is, you look at countries that have been able to work their way out of gripping poverty. They pursued protectionist aims while interacting with the rest of the world. So I'm not for abolishing trade altogether. I'm just for entering into trade in which we stand to profit. That's true for Canada, but it should be true for the US as well. I think everybody's better off if they put their own interests first, as opposed to creating systems of dependency like we see in Taiwan, where that dependency could force us into a war. Whereas if we produce the chips here, we would have more strategic leeway in terms of our response. So
interesting. Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yep, that answered my question.
It did? Okay.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
How's it going, Mr. Right Corner? Can we hear you?
Hi, how are you? Can you guys hear me?
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, we're good. We've got about, 5 minutes until showtime. Dylan's just doing commentary right now. Hutch, are you good? Well, he just took his headset off and walked off. Nice. Thanks, Hutch. I guess he's good.
What's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, please go. How you doing, sir?
Good. I'm live, by the way. Is that cool?
Everyone's live, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What? That's everyone. Cool. Everyone's ready, apart from Dylan. Nice. Okay. I'm going to sleep straight after this. Oh, no, I'm not. I've got the video to edit this. Oh, just to warn everyone, when I drag you into the room with Dylan, your camera will turn off. You'll have to switch it back on.
Okay.
Nothing I can do to stop that. It happens every time.
Oh, shit. The wrong fucking button.
That
Like
was
the
the wrong
background
fucking
just,
button.
Beg your pardon?
So I like the background.
I appreciate that.
Looks good.
People keep busting my balls and they say it needs like a live, laugh, love thing. And I'm like, fuck you.
It kind of does look like that. But
Stop
I like
it. Don't do that. Listen, we don't need to start off on the wrong foot already.
No, I like it. I
This is
mean,
the-
my shit. Look,
this is
I've
the
got
fu-
like the live, laugh, love vases behind me, so we're on the same wavelength over here.
Yeah, I let my
Any
girlfriend
gay
decorate
stuff
it.
behind
It's
me?
very tasteful.
This is my mom, so this
Nice.
is very not manly at all.
Nice.
Can't do
Love
anything about
the
it.
Chanel thing behind you.
It's very gay.
Cross with the heart on it really sells your personality.
I think I could let's just do that.
Remember, there's a mirror back there, so if you do anything inappropriate, it's going to reflect. Okay, scratch your ass for any reason, it's just going to be right in front of God and country.
Wait, so I'm curious, who is on like whose side here?
Well, I'm on the side of the Canadian people and my friends in the US that are people as
We
well.
love so much. So it's you, Kevin Castley, Lactoid, and Mr. Higby. And then
Very
you've got
cool.
the Lib Squad, Lib and Learn, Josiah, Econo Boy, Hutch,
I think it
and
doesn't display names fully down below.
Pisco.
Oh yeah, I guess it does
Yeah.
now.
yeah.
Okay.
If you hover over it, yeah.
We should have had name tags or something like that.
Superpower Broadcasting is Kevin Castley.
Yeah, that's just my channel name.
I will work out how to give you lower thirds one day.
That's gonna be fun.
Whatever Josiah uses for our show just does it
Yeah,
automatically, I think. So
I do
The prob-
Restream though. It's browser based and super. Like I'm a boomer when it comes to technology, so Restream is pretty user friendly. Like I don't fuck with OBS or anything like that.
Yeah, I use Restream for pretty much everything. Restream and
Yeah.
Streamlabs, depending on what I'm doing.
Yeah, man, I did use Streamlabs, but to be honest with you, like when I was trying to like, I think it was interviewing Mehdi Hassan, and we couldn't do it through Restream because it's browser based, and so it was really unreliable. Then we tried to use Zoom, and I couldn't get the Streamlabs and the Zoom to cooperate, where it would like have a what they call that fake camera or whatever, artificial camera, virtual camera.
Virtual camera.
So yeah, we couldn't figure it out, me and my tech guy. So then I migrated to OBS maybe a month ago. It's good. It's
Restream
less
just looks
taxing.
cleaner. I think.
Yeah, Restream is clean as fuck. I just don't know why there's not a software option. Like just
Yeah.
having it browser based means that if you're connecting with people, it's much more likely to derez and to lag and
We'll
stuff.
use,
So
Riverside's really good for that stuff, for like calling people in. It's browser based too, but
oh,
it's super
Okay.
reliable.
I'll check that out.
Yeah.
When you do Restream, do you have to connect accounts, or can you just join a call as a guest?
You can join as a guest. They can like admin you on the thing, like, give you like certain privileges and stuff.
Yeah, but it won't like join. As far as I know, it won't like merge chats or anything else. So like it'll be totally segregated.
Yeah.
That's Hutch's way of saying that he doesn't want to join us anymore. He doesn't want to merge channels.
I guess
see how it is.
Riverside
I didn't wanna come
actually
out and say
wouldn't
it.
work for you because you do live stuff. It's better for pre-recorded.
Yeah, exactly, Hutch. Did you hear that?
I didn't want to say it, but yeah, I'm thinking about leaving.
Wow. Wow, and you just spring this on me now? Pisco
can
can't
talk
even
about it
hear it.
later.
Oh no, he can hear it now. He was deafened. Now he can hear it, but he's stunned into silence.
You talking to me?
No.
You talking to me?
What's up?
Where's your hat, Pisco?
Which hat? The Kamala hat?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Harris Walls hat.
over there.
Demo version.
Do you want me to wear it?
I got a hat for you.
Wait, are you like
Halfway.
The hell.
are you like unironically with Kamala, or is it a meme?
No, of course I'm for Kamala. I'm an American, and I support people who are in favor of the Constitution. Is that funny?
No, it is kind of funny because I was just explaining earlier, like she's less pro-labor than Biden was. So
I
Who
love
the fuck
Kevin
cares?
so
Trump
much.
tried to steal the election.
Hey, can we save it?
Yeah,
Turn it on now.
Let's go.
Hutch
Wait,
is,
is that funny? Do you
Fun.
deny that Trump tried to steal the election?
Absolutely.
Oh.
no, I just think it's like kind of a meme.
Don't deny it, but you think it's
a meme issue.
because you have these opinions about labor.
Pisco, we got to save
Like
it.
people
for the-
out there, dude. The average
We'll
American
we'll
makes
save it.
$30,000 a year.
We'll save
Dude.
it. We'll
Nobody
save it.
cares about that crap.
Just edge a little bit.
No one cares about the Constitution. No
Oh,
one cares
wait a
about
minute. Come
transfer
on,
power.
you can't. No, come on, man.
That's Kevin Cass's opinion. He doesn't give a shit about the transfer power of the Constitution.
Yeah, let's schedule a debate, dude.
Wait, Higby
No, I
first.
didn't.
We've got his.
You don't scare me.
Israel.
Wait, yeah, Kevin, what's your position on Israel? I heard you might be a little anti-Israel.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I realized today, like it's been a while since I've like been actively streaming. I need to get a 4K camera because the resolution doesn't come in, but I framed it. That's APAC blocked me on the frame in the background, so that should give you a sense of my opinion of Israel.
Bro,
So
all right, let's schedule a debate. And also
Let's schedule a
6K
debate.
6K gang, bro. This is 6K. You can't tell because Discord blocks it, but it's 6K. 6K reduced.
You can tell. You can tell.
Can you tell?
Wait, you hate Israel and you support Trump?
I don't support Trump. I don't support. Look, there's such a thing as critical support, and there's such a thing as saying where people are doing good things and bad things. On the issue of specific policy, let's be real. They both have wins and they both have L's. Like, I'm just keeping it real. Look, Trump's rhetoric was able to move Biden in a more protectionist direction, but Biden got more results than Trump did. Biden brought more factories to America than Trump
Don't
did.
support Trump, or you do
Danabo,
support
do I have
Trump?
a second to go grab water? Real
No,
quick?
I think we'll have to save it for the stream, because apparently you're not capable of understanding nuance, and I don't know how much time we have here. So
Damn.
It's fair to say that you wouldn't characterize your opinion of Trump as supporting Trump. You wouldn't
I
characterize.
mean, if you look at my X history, a lot of it
I
is
don't.
like criticize. Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. So if you look at my X history, a lot of it is critical of Trump. It's also giving him praise where it's deserved. I mean, if
would
we're
you
just gonna
characterize
pretend-
your disposition of Trump as being in support or not?
Neither. I would say I support him on the areas
answer
that he's
no?
correct. I support him on the areas that he's correct, and I oppose him on the areas that he's
You either would
incorrect.
characterize your disposition to Trump that way, or you wouldn't. And it's the answer that you wouldn't.
No. But
yes or no,
I have
Kevin?
shame.
Yes or no?
Like, I'll be the first one to tell you, if I agreed with everything this guy was doing and I thought it was super uber based, I would be out here saying, yeah, Trump number one. But I'm not, because he has
Do
a
you
lot
agree
of
with it
problems.
more often than
But
not?
are we going to pretend that Kamala doesn't also have problems? That's it.
Would you
that's an issue.
characterize your disposition? You can either say, yeah, no, I wouldn't, because I'd be more nuanced, but it's just a simple question. You can answer yes or no.
I've
Would you
already
characterize
said.
your so is the answer no or yes? Would you characterize your disposition as being in support or not?
No, it
just gonna
literally
drag them into
depends
the
on the
main room
issue.
halfway
You
through
don't
this.
understand. Like you're thinking within the partisan box of blue team
I'm
good,
not.
red team bad.
You could be
I'm
like, no, I
looking
don't,
at
because
the
of
actual
the nuance.
policy suite. And they both have some cringe and they both have some base. Let's just be real about it. The question is who has more on
What is
which
the
issues
cringe,
that
the
actually
base
matter.
ratio?
So the answer, you would not characterize your overall net disposition as being support. You can either say that your net position is support, or you wouldn't characterize it that way. I'm not forcing you to say that you have to agree with everything. No. Okay. Cool.
Peace Goat, you don't understand. What I'm saying is that.
All right, I think he's ready. Are you guys ready?
Okay, if he's ready, okay.
Close my door. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry to
same.
interrupt that. It was lovely, but have a good night, everyone. If you need me, I'm only a message away. I'll be watching all night. Have a
Very
good show.
based. Have a good night, Danabo.
All right, see you soon.
What the fuck just happened?
Can any of you hear me?
How do I?
They put us at a waiting room. Hutch, that's why.
Fantastic. I think the audio is not in the right port. Let me fix it quick. Do. And I think it's fixed now. Could somebody say something?
Test.
Testing.
Hello.
testing.
Yo.
Perfect. Now it's working. Great. Thank you all for coming on today, for taking time out of your, I imagine with the election being close, not too far away, somewhat packed to maybe not packed, depending on what you're doing, schedules, in order to just spend a few hours talking topics with people that you don't agree with. We've gathered 4 people that we would consider on the generally speaking political left, and other 4 people that we would generally call on the political right. Of course, people might dispute that for personal descriptions, but we try to be broad here. And we've brought them here today to talk issues on the Hippy Dippy Roundtable. I'm sure many of you already know the rules, but we're going to go through them quickly before we go into introductions. The first rule is we stream on Twitch, we stream on YouTube. Please stay within the terms of service. Not only would I like to keep my job, but I know many of the other streamers on this platform tonight would like to keep your job. I don't care how you speak on your own platform. I don't care how you speak on your own time. I am not your mother, but this is my show, and I would very much not like any slurs. I would not like any extended personal attacks. If you guys get mean with each other, it's not my time. I'm not your mother, but if it diverts from the conversation, I will bring it back. But anything outside the terms of service is not allowed. That's the first thing. Second thing, when I'm talking, I'm just here to moderate. Everybody knows that, I have my own political beliefs, but I'm not here to share them. I'm here because I believe that it is important for us to talk to each other, and I think that it makes interesting content, and I have no interest in displaying my beliefs tonight, just getting your guys' beliefs. So I just want to be here to moderate. So when I'm speaking, it's not to put across my beliefs, it's because because the audience can't hear what you're saying. Some people haven't got enough time to speak and they're being interrupted, and that's all I'm trying to do is moderate. So if I'm speaking, I ask you guys to get quiet as soon as possible. It makes my job much easier. I will mute, and I hold the permission to mute because it makes my job easier. I don't have any personal grudges with anyone here. I'm just trying to moderate the show. Also, if you're having trouble getting into the conversation, there's a lot of people here today, you can raise your hand. I have a notepad and I will be writing down names. So if you're like, I don't want to have to burrow my way into this conversation, I'll make sure that eventually you get time to talk. Might take 15 to 20 minutes because there's 8 people in the room, but I want to make sure that everybody can get a say at some point. And of course, at the start of every topic and at the end, you will get a 2-minute period. That's the end of it, not 3 minutes, not 4 minutes, 2 minutes, and I'll be strict with that, where you'll be uninterrupted to give your position on the topic and to end with any ending thoughts. So that'll make sure that you do have time to talk uninterrupted, because I know that interruptions can be very frequent at times. And I think that's just about everything. Is there any reservations, questions, or anything about the rules that need to be asked? Nope. Fantastic. That makes my job very easy. So we're quickly just going to go around the room, have people introduce themselves before going into the first topic. We're going to start with my left here, Cam Higby.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Cam Higby. I'm a political commentator and investigative journalist. Yep, that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me on, Dylan.
Short and sweet, just how I like it. Econ Boy.
Hey everyone, Kind of Boy on YouTube and whatnot. Host a couple different podcasts. Love economics, love politics, left of center guy, pretty progressive guy. And yeah, looking forward to the conversation. Should be fun.
Okay. Hutch?
Yeah, my name is Hutch, and I'm active on YouTube and Twitch. You can just look up Hutch, and happy to be here.
Happy to have you. Pondering Politics.
Hey everybody, my name is Josiah. I host Pondering Politics on YouTube, a liberal/progressive politics channel, unapologetically partisan for the Democrats. The Republican Party is an authoritarian cult of personality, and false equivalences and that sort of thing suck. So no enlightened centrism for me, please. You can find me at youtube.com/@ponderingpolitics. Looking forward to the conversation.
Happy to have you. Lactoid, a hippy-dippy recruitment man who's coming up to the main show. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Lactoid. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I am a right-leaning libertarian and also an attorney.
Fantastic. Oh, we have 2 attorneys on tonight. Only 2, right? Do we have 3? 2? Okay, just 2.
No, and you're being billed right now, Dylan.
Thank you so much, Dylan. It's a pleasure to be on here. Pisco Liddy, or Pisco for short on Twitter X, here to defend the Constitution of the United States.
Simple. Now I'm going to throw it over to, do you want me to refer to you as RC, or how do you want me to refer to you? Just RC?
Yeah, so I'm the right corner. I go by RC. That's how my fan base normally refers to me. I'm a conservative, a biblical, traditional conservative content creator.
Okay, short and sweet. And Superpower Broadcasting, also known as Kevin Castley.
Hey everybody, it's good to be here. It's been a couple of years since I've been on Hippy Dippy. I largely took a break from streaming, but I, of course, still active over on X. You can follow me on x.com at Kevin Castley. Follow me on YouTube, Superpower Broadcasting, and Twitch at Superpower Broadcasting. I advocate for people-centered politics. I am starting up a couple streams soon focused on going through political theory as well as making fun of the state of the Canadian economy. I'm obviously from Canada, but, I've got opinions on a lot of the stuff unfolding in the U.S., and of course it affects my country as well. So with that, I'm looking forward to the debate here. I enjoy debates, and it's good to be here. So thank you.
I'll try not to hold the fact that you're a Canadian against you too much, Kevin. So we're going to start off tonight's debate with the vice presidential debate. Now, we're not going to talk about who won, who lost. That's, I think, more boring. What we're going to talk about tonight is who would make a better vice president. After watching their VP performances, after being able to look at the history of, Tim Walz's time in office, and JD Vance has had much more time than Tim Walz to be on the campaign trail with Donald Trump to get his opinions out there too, and of course 2 years in the Senate. I'm sure many of you have opinions, and so I'll just throw the question as simply as possible: who would be a better vice presidential candidate as vice president? Who would be a better VP, Tim Walz or JD Vance? We're going to start with Cam Higbee. Again, 2-minute intros is the max. You can also do 30 seconds if you want. Cam?
Yeah, so I think that generally the vice president's role is going to be casting tie-breaking votes, being the last person in the room that the president hears before they do things. Obviously, I align more with J.D. Vance's policy perspective, so I'm going to think that J.D. Vance is the better person. I don't agree with many of Tim Walz's policy perspectives, and I think that he is kind of like a micro liar. I think that he just lies all the time. In addition to that, I think that J.D. Vance is incredibly smart. He has a good head on his shoulders, and he actually answers questions when asked. So, yeah, that's going to be my intro.
Okay, Econ Boy.
Hey everyone, yeah, my opinion is largely the same as Cam's, except the other side of the coin. Obviously, I find Tim Walz's general policy inclination to be better. I tend personally, my priorities tend to be poverty and inequality when it comes to how I cast my vote. It's certainly the main reason why I would call myself a Democrat, along with being very socially progressive. Looking at some of the things that Tim Walz did as governor, some of the things, and I'm sure some of the advice that he would be giving as part of the administration, kind of the main role of the VP to give advice to the president. He did a lot of good stuff, in my opinion. He expanded abortion access, free school meals, infrastructure investment, general education investment, climate energy targets. These things are good. They're progressive. They're good for people, and they're the right thing to do. So I think that Tim Walz would be a good voice in the upcoming administration. Certainly better than J.D. Vance, who can't even answer whether or not he thought that Trump had won or lost the last election.
We're going to throw it over to Hutch.
Yeah, so I echo some of the same sentiments. Obviously, if you have specific policy preferences, one candidate is going to be better than the other. Of course, we can speak to experience. J.D. Vance's experience so far is he's been a senator for 2 years. Before that, he was friends with like VC super rich people, and he was an author. Walz has been in government for the last 20 years, as far as I understand. He served in the House for quite a long time, and then as governor of Minnesota, where he's passed a lot of policies that have been super popular with people that live there. But aside from policy preference, I think that there are some things that are disqualifying. There was an interview snippet that went live today of a New York Times journalist interviewing J.D. Vance. He was asked 5 times if Trump lost the election. He refused to answer 5 times. He reaffirmed that he would have sent the slates of electors back to the states. Were he in Pence's shoes in 2020? Obviously, to me, as someone above any kind of like partisan bend that just values liberal democracy, this is utterly disqualifying. And yeah, for that reason, I think Walz is the clear choice.
Lectoid.
Yeah, so I was initially... I'm next, right? Not Josiah?
Yes, Lectoid, you're next.
Okay. I was initially... All good. I was initially skeptical of J.D. Vance when he was announced, right? There was all these candidates. Why him? I didn't know anything about him. Most people I knew didn't know anything about him. And I was generally actually opposed to the idea. I didn't think it was a good idea. But there's been a couple changes since then that have made me respect J.D. Vance more. And I think overall he's a good vice presidential pick. I think he will be a good vice president. I definitely think he'll be better than Tim Walz. I think that a lot of the issues that he suffered from early on, this idea that he's not charismatic, that he's not all that likable, but I think a lot of Americans during the debate discovered that he actually is charismatic and he is likable. He comes from a military background. He has experience being deployed to Iraq. He also has experience coming from poverty and struggle, yet had the grit to make it past these disadvantages to be where he is now. And where he is now comes from a impressive work history, right? Came out of Yale Law, became a law clerk for Judge David Bunning, then worked as a corporate lawyer for a few years, before going into capital management and becoming a vice presidential candidate. It's impressive where he came from and now where he is. I also think he's capable of criticizing Donald Trump, which is good. I think it's good to be able to have somebody who can criticize somebody and say, look, there's disagreements that we have, but here's the issues that we really do care about, and here's why we should be working together towards a end goal. And he does have a history of also being able to work in a bipartisan manner. I think he adds, therefore, a level of conciliation and explanatory power behind Trump's message that I think would otherwise be lacking. And also, most importantly, I think J.D. Vance supports the integrity of the Constitution by opposing court packing, which is a major threat to the U.S. Constitution, and I think is a threat to the Republic as a whole. I was also initially skeptical of Tim Walz. I don't know why Shapiro from Pennsylvania wasn't picked, but however, he's been doing nothing but proving me right with my skepticism. He allows abortion all the way up until the day of birth for any reason or no reason whatsoever, and then continues to lie about it. He's bad on guns. He's bad on free speech. He doesn't think the First Amendment applies to hate speech, which is particularly concerning. And he's a really big fan of raising taxes. So overall, not a good guy.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Pisco.
The U.S. Constitution is one of the greatest founding documents of any country in the history of the world. It's one that is absolutely vital to our country. It has survived for over 200 years and is the envy of the entire world. When the framers envisioned the vice presidency, they gave it important roles, contrary to kind of popular belief that the vice presidency doesn't matter. The vice president is the president of the Senate, so have a good amount of responsibilities there and obviously breaking ties. And the vice president also has to be ready to assume the office of the presidency at any given moment. When something could happen to the presidency, he or she or they need to be available to take up that awesome mantle and become a branch unto themselves. The vice presidency also has an important role in the 12th Amendment and Electoral Count Act to certify the results of our presidential elections. When I look back and at the great vice presidents of our time, one that stands out is our first vice president, John Adams. John Adams, as president, did something that has never been done, or that had never been done up to that point in American history, which is transferring power to the opposite party. He lost the election against Thomas Jefferson and gave over that power willingly to his political rival, Thomas Jefferson. J.D. Vance, on the other hand, has promised that were he in power, he would subvert the Constitution and engage in sedition and insurrection against the United States Constitution by promising to undo the results of a national election. It's hilarious that Cam Higbee says that J.D. Vance actually answers questions when put on the spot now at least 6 times in the last week and a half about whether or not Donald Trump won the election. He has been demurring and unable to answer that very simple question with a very serious and honest answer, which is that he lost the election. Everything else, policy-wise, obviously I'm going to agree with Kamala Harris. I think it's preposterous to suggest that this administration is going to be better on foreign policy or domestic policy. But it all goes out the side. I mean, the only thing that matters in our system, really, is whether or not you're going to respect the transfer of power, whether or not you're going to respect our republic. And for people on this panel to like poo-poo that notion and to say it didn't matter that the previous administration tried to steal the election and that the current candidate for VP said that he would sign on to that is disgusting. Everything else is absolutely, sugarcoating, cherries on top. Of course, J.D. Vance sucks policy-wise. Of course, you can't trust a word this man says. But ultimately, the one test, the most important test, will you uphold this republic? He has told the American people that he will fail that test, and he will not stand up to Donald Trump the next time he tries to subvert the Constitution.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to RC.
Yeah, hey, am I coming through clear? Because I'm not sure if it was just lagging on my end or... Yeah.
No, it's lagging for me too.
Yeah, you're
It's
a little laggy.
I caught everything piece.
Okay. All right. I was just
I
making
can hear you okay though right now.
Cool. So I do support JD Vance more than Tim Walz. There's no perfect candidate. Economically, I support him more because he has experience in the private sector. And I think this country needs someone that has experience in the private sector and not someone that's just a career politician that has experience in knowing how to manage people for a successful company. And socially speaking, I don't really agree with anything that Tim Walz supports. And I morally cannot bring myself to vote for somebody like that. So I think it's really important to have people in our government that run our government more so like a company, because we're in significant debt. And there's a hierarchy to the US government, just like there's a hierarchy to a private business. And I think it's important to change things a bit and have people that have practical experience in the private sector and not only experience in the public sector. And I don't want to question why a politician is worth hundreds of millions of dollars when that same politician is questioning somebody like Trump on his tax records. That's pretty ironic to me. We know where Trump got his money. I'm not sure why Obama, Biden, et cetera, are worth tens of millions of dollars, maybe even upwards of 100 million.
Okay, over to Kevin Castley.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. So Yeah, so this one's a little bit complicated, right? So they both have some wins, they both have some L's. When we look at their background, they, in terms of service, have a similar background. They were both in the Army, so in that sense, they both have, service behind them. But here's the thing. I want to just throw it back to, I think it was 10 or 9 days ago at the vice presidential debate. You can really gather a lot of the priority of these folks from how they open in that debate. So I recommend everybody watch the whole debate, but if you don't have the time for that, just watch the first 15 minutes. It was very enlightening. The debate starts off with the question of the response of Iran to Israel with the missile attacks. And Tim Walz goes right into it saying, we stand with Israel and so on and so forth. And he bemoaned Trump for doing diplomacy with countries that the U.S. doesn't get along with. Then they went over to J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance, you could say, kind of dodged the question, right? But he did it for an important reason, which was to both introduce himself to the American people and, of course, to highlight his economic priority. Vance has talked a lot about economics, and yes, his background in venture capital is a little bit dicey. His relationship with Peter Thiel is kind of weird, but here's the thing. At that time, he was very anti-Trump, and he is now very pro-Trump, obviously, as the vice presidential pick. And so he's somebody who's capable of having a political evolution as new data is brought before him. Obviously, Trump's got a lot of problems, but I look at Vance and I say, okay, here's somebody who's capable of changing his mind when he thinks he's wrong about something. And I respect that about him. I do agree with Waltz on a lot of the social issue stuff, but let's be real. You can't pay the bills with a pride parade. And as bad as it is with regards to what some of the Republicans want to do on abortion access, at the end of the day, Vance is the one talking about the reindustrialization of the Rust Belt. Well, Tim Walz and Kamala Harris are bragging about having Dick Cheney's endorsement. So thank you.
Okay. Just a little bit over 2 minutes. I think we all stayed within that area, and I appreciate it. So who wants to take this off? Who wants to, does anything that's been said that anyone wants to respond to?
Did I not get it over there, sir?
That's why I was confused, too.
No, I just don't like pondering.
Ignored.
Sorry, Pondering, I forgot. I went around you in a circle. I don't know why. Pondering.
Whoops. In Lactoid, my frenemy stood up for me. Wow, shameful. Okay.
Yeah, I went out of my way to bully you. I'm very sorry.
I see how it is, Dylan. Unbelievable. Actually, some of the structure I want to echo of what Kim Higbee said. So, the Constitution doesn't afford the vice president many crucial powers, but one of them is certifying the results of an election. And based on comments that J.D. Vance has said over the years, we have no reason to believe that, he would faithfully uphold that singular constitutional purpose. That's a big one. I would say that his lack of legislative and executive experience are also, a downer, a reason that we can't, meaningfully believe that he would be a valuable ally and advisor to Donald Trump if he were to win the White House. Some have said that, he could push back on Trump, but we have no reason to believe that because he's actually answering questions in such a way as to avoid pissing Trump off, number one. And number two, Trump's made it clear that if J.D. Vance says something that Trump doesn't like, Trump has said explicitly that the vice president doesn't matter all that much the few times that they've been misaligned. So I don't think Vance has the character for it. He doesn't have the experience executively or legislatively, I think, to be a value add the way that President Biden was to Barack Obama. And when it comes to presiding over free and fair elections, his one constitutional duty, he indicates that he'd be singularly atrocious at it. In a way that even Mike Pence was not. So I think for all these reasons and others, J.D. Vance is a weak vice presidential candidate, but it makes sense because he's also serving a particularly weak presidential candidate as well.
Okay. Now, is there anybody who wants to take us off? Anything that wants to be responded to? Since Pisco grabbed it first, he gets it.
Yeah, I want to hear from all the people who are supporting Vance. Did Trump lose the 2020 election? Did he try to install himself in office? And has Vance said that he would have followed along with Trump's plan?
Yeah, sure. He did say that Trump did lose the election. I don't think that Trump won the election. I also don't think that he broke any laws. In addition to what you said, Pisco, earlier when you were addressing me directly about Vance not answering questions. You said that he refuses to answer the question about Trump losing the election. That's fair. He does fail to answer that question every single time it's asked to him. Sure.
Isn't that disqualifying?
Oh, yeah. Well, Pisco, I was not finished, so I'm going to continue now. So Tim Walz dances around every single question that is asked to him. When he was asked about Tiananmen Square, he went on about, rambled about his time as a teacher, his time in the military, and then was a deer in headlights when the journalist actually came back around and asked him the question a second time. He lied about the Tiananmen Square thing. He lied about allowing abortion at 9 months. He lied about overturning protections for failed abortion babies. He lied about his son witnessing a shooting. He lied about serving in war. He lied about Trump building less than 2% of the wall, which wasn't even astronomically close. He lied about shootings in Finnish schools.
I'll fight you on all those, but let's grant them.
Yeah, sure, fair.
I'll fight you on all those.
Yeah,
I'll fight you on all those.
Man. I'm not trying to go into them right now, but I'm happy to.
I'll fight you on all of those points, but let's grant them. Isn't it fucking disqualifying to say, yeah, you say your own words, Trump lost the election, and Vance is saying he wouldn't have certified it? How can you fucking support this guy?
Wait, yeah, so I have a difference of opinion on it. I have plenty of differences of opinions with Trump as well, right? I don't agree with burning of the American flag. I don't agree with banning bump stocks. There are tons of things that I disagree with Trump on. Just because I have a difference of opinion.
You began your endorsement of J.D. Vance by appealing to his constitutional duties. Why do you have any faith that he would preside over the certification of an election that he would lose?
Yeah, I think the question would be more so, do I have faith that he's not going to break the law? And I think that I have just a much fair faith in J.D. Vance not breaking the law as I have anybody else.
Wait. Sure. Assume it's legal, right?
Sure.
Assume that it's completely legal to do what Trump did. Put legality to the side here.
Yeah.
Should you support someone who is going to take the methods that he said to not certify the election and to certify instead the person who lost the election?
I mean, look, you opened up your thing talking about Jefferson. Jefferson won the election of 1800 in the exact same way that Trump tried to win the election, nearly the exact same way. Yes, John Eastman wanted to divert it to a vote in the House, in the chambers of Congress, and they would vote state by state. That's exactly what Eastman wanted to do.
So the poverty of your thought is apparent because you understand the Electoral Count Act wasn't in place until the 1870s after the Hayes election. Of course it wasn't. And the 12th Amendment, and you understand, of course, that the 12th Amendment wasn't in place at the time of the Jefferson election. So how can you say, and you're going to answer this question, how can you say that Jefferson did the exact same thing if the constitutional amendment giving the vice president the power, the ceremonial power, and the legislation at issue wasn't even enforced?
What I meant by that was the legal. Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. If you okay. So the route that Eastman wanted Trump to go through was both chambers of the chambers of Congress individually voting by state through their representatives in count for count to elect the president rather than using electors, which is exactly what happened in the 1800s.
You are comparing an apples and oranges situation because the presence of the Electoral Count Act precludes that very route.
No, the theory that Eastman wanted...
conceded.
Yes.
Eastman conceded in his memo that he would be violating what?
The Electoral Count. No, he didn't concede that he would be violating the Electoral Count Act. Have you read the memo? I have it in front of me. No, he didn't. He said the Electoral Count Act altogether is unconstitutional.
In other communications, he concedes that this would not pass scrutiny at all.
Where are the communications, Pisco? Cite them. Where are they? Where are they? Oh, yeah, you want to move away from that, don't you? You're running like your feet are hot.
Wait. The communications to the vice president's staff, you deny those exist?
Cite them. Where are they? Show them to me.
Exist, yes or no?
Show them. Cite them.
Are you
like I'm in kindergarten? Sure. Like I'm in kindergarten. Cite them, Pisco. It's like you got lava rocks on your feet. You're running.
Sounds like you haven't.
Show them.
It sounds like you haven't read.
Cite them.
Any of the.
Have you read the Eastman memo? Have you read the Eastman memo?
In the Jack Smith indictment. If you did, you would have read the email.
You're right. I haven't read the full Jack Smith thing. It's like 900 pages. I read the analysis. And it didn't show us anything new that we didn't already know.
Wait, what did the email say, Pisco?
Amendment wasn't an operation.
It showed us nothing new.
This was an email. This was an email from Eastman to the administration saying we need to do one more violation of Electoral Count Act. In addition, there are other communications that are attested to by witnesses where he says, yeah, we would have lost 9-0. So those are two times that I'm citing now. Are you denying where he is acknowledging that there are intrinsic violations of the Electoral Count Act at issue?
John Eastman believes
those are his words.
Well, you asked me a question. You're gonna let me answer. It's not his words, actually. John Eastman said that the Electoral Count Act is fully unconstitutional, and he deferred to the section of the Constitution that says that if things are not rooted in the Constitution, then they are not valid law of the land.
Well, but I think the logic of J.D. Vance, at least what he has answered when he's answered the question, would you certify the 2020 election? For instance, this most recent clip where he gets asked like 5 or 6 times, what he says is, well, we've pointed out problems, and he talks about Twitter censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story and studies that show that Trump lost millions of votes because of that. Let's just walk through that logic. Like, do you think that that's a responsible logic for the vice president to basically say, and this is essentially what he's saying, a social media company didn't publicize a story that a newspaper wrote, so I'm going to use fake sets of electors, or change essentially fundamentally the decision-making process.
Well,
of
I would
democracy.
assume.
Does that seem reasonable?
I would assume by your logic that this would be the case, considering I assume you fully concede to the New York indictments, yeah, because that was almost the entire basis for those indictments.
Do you think that's a good logic?
It doesn't. It's not illegal. I have my own opinions on whether or not I think it's responsible or should be done. Sure, I don't think it should be done.
It's not a matter.
Yeah, I don't think it should be done.
Like
I already
Pisco
conceded.
said,
Wait, hold up.
No,
is this
how can you
Econ
vote
that's
for someone
talking?
who says
Econ, I already conceded that I disagree with him on this, but by your logic, this should be immediately disqualifying for you, considering the entire basis of the felony convictions on Trump were that he suppressed information from the public.
But
yeah. Do we throw those out now? Are they in the garbage? Are they in the garbage?
We're not talking. We're not talking.
Oh right, we're not talking about
here,
that. When I hold you to your own logic, we don't. It's out the door. No, the upgrade to the felony. The upgrade to the felony was based on.
One second. There's 4 people talking at the same time, so it's getting to a point where I can't hear it. I just want to quickly give Pondering a moment to chime in, because I do want to. I will stay on this topic for a little bit, maybe give it 10, 15 minutes, but I do want to make sure that this whole question is not just we're talking about the 2020 election results. We're going to talk about that because I saw that clip earlier today. I understand that's really passionate for the liberals on this podcast. Pondering?
Yeah, so I was going to say, so Cam did ask a question, and I wanted to make sure I cited my sources. So it's an email, and I'll send you the link, Cam. It was an email dated on January 6, 2021. It was an email from John Eastman to Greg Jacobs, who I think was like counsel to Vice President Pence. And the quote is, so now that the president has been set that the Electoral Count Act is not quite so sacrosanct as was previously claimed, I implore you to consider one more relatively minor violation and adjourn for 10 days. So yes, he was conceding that what he proposed would violate the Electoral Count Act. Now you can say that it's not constitutional or not. That's neither here nor there.
No,
he is proposing a violation.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that's what Eastman believed. So Eastman believed that the Electoral Count Act was unconstitutional because it directly contradicts the 12th Amendment. And then in addition to that, Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution says that if things contradict the Constitution. Wait, Pisco, was I finished, or are you rambling on while I'm talking?
Let's let Cam finish quickly, and then we'll have Pondering and Pisco respond.
Yeah, so John Eastman's position was that the Electoral Count Act of 1887 is unconstitutional because it directly contradicts the 12th Amendment of the United States Constitution. His legal theory was that because Article 6, Section 2 of the Constitution disqualifies anything from being federal law that is not rooted in the Constitution or that directly contradicts the Constitution, that the Electoral Count Act is not valid. Now, I don't know if I agree with this or not. I'm not a legal scholar, but John Eastman did cite legal scholars from Harvard that agree with him vigorously.
Okay. Well, respectfully, the fact that he believes that the ECA is unconstitutional is relevant. It's not decided as unconstitutional. It's still binding law. I can agree. I can believe that murder is unconstitutional, but I don't have carte blanche to go commit murder. So at the end of the day, it is a fact that what he is proposing by his own words is a violation of the ECA. And if you deny that, you are wrong.
It doesn't even matter, right? Like Cam, suppose that it were technically legal for the president to order the armed forces to go and hold the Senate at gunpoint and to get him to gavel in the joint session of Congress to gavel in president. Suppose that were technically legal for whatever reason, and someone said, "Yeah, I would support the president if he tried to do that." Could you ever imagine supporting that person?
Yeah.
And,
I can.
Can you explain your support for someone who lost an election to take methods, even if they're legal, to change the results?
Sure. So I'm glad that we're conceding now that it was legal. But
I'm not
now,
sorry.
Hold on.
Wait, that's dishonest.
Wait, that's dishonest. I have to stop you. I am absolutely not conceding that.
Well, you've moved away from it.
No.
He said,
Because you're not equipped to have the legal discussion. I don't want to bog down this panel on a conversation that you're ill-equipped for when you cited the 12th Amendment and the Electoral Count Act at a period of time 70 years before it was passed. And so, no, you are not equipped for a legal discussion. I am for this purpose of our argument saying suppose it were legal, but I am not conceding that.
Okay,
so
Pisco.
I'm glad you admitted you're not equipped to have that conversation. So go ahead, Pisco.
Yeah, Pisco. You mean Cam?
Well,
I was saying I was using your own words against you. I'm saying I'm glad you're conceding that you're not equipped to have that conversation.
No,
with
I'm not conceding that. I'm not conceding that, but I'm going to answer the question at hand. I didn't say that.
One right now, and one of them's a lawyer, so I do want to make sure that we give Cam Higby some time to respond here before going to other people, because it's kind of the panel's kind of tilted one way right now. So Cam, one last response before we go around the room.
So I can disagree. I agree with you that just because something is legal does not make it okay, i.e. slavery. But I can disagree with those actions to varying degrees, right? I think that using a legal loophole to try to maintain power is bad, and I disagree with it. I think that holding members of Congress at gunpoint is much worse than that. So yeah, I think overall, Trump tried to use an esoteric legal theory deployed by John Eastman. I disagree with the use of that legal theory. Even if it were legal, I think that we shouldn't do it just because it kind of breaks tradition. But with that being said, I still think that Trump is overall the better candidate.
Because he lost. Wait, how about?
I want to throw it over to Hutch. Wait, I'm sorry. We got to throw it over to Hutch because he's been waiting patiently, and I want to have this brought back to JD Vance. Hutch, what do you think about JD Vance not answering in these interviews whether or not Donald Trump lost the 2020 election?
Well, to me, it's utterly disqualifying. I did want to ask a question, though. I wanted to pose it. I wanted to pose a hypothetical, because obviously Kamala is going to be the one that's presiding over the Senate or the Congress when they certify the results in 2025. If she were to pursue some esoteric, as you say, legal theory, and if she was ultimately successful in certifying the election in her favor, in the case that Trump actually won, would you be sitting here saying, "Hey, fair play"? Or would you call that disqualifying?
Yeah, if she didn't break any laws, I wouldn't be trying to lock her up. But what I would do is I would call her out on hypocrisy due to her current rhetoric related to the situation. That's probably about as far as I'd go with
unbelievable.
it. It's bad.
So that to me seems like real quick. That to me seems like the wrong thing to be focusing on. You would be more upset about that than the fact that she disenfranchised probably tens of millions of voters.
She stole an
election. Like that seems to be the main problem here.
You guys keep using steal. If it's done through a legal means, it's not stealing the election. It's just pursuing an alternate route to count the votes. You do it through electoral or through like representation in Congress.
Making it so the winner of the election loses. Is that better?
The winner of the popular vote loses almost every single year.
No. Sorry. No.
Yeah,
First of all, that's not true.
Right.
I don't know why the fuck you would say that. That's happened like 4 or 5 times out of 40 elections. That's not true.
Past several elections.
We're not doing the popular vote. No, the subversion here wasn't of the popular vote. It was of the
you're right. It was an analogy.
Vote.
Pisco,
Okay?
do you know how that works? It was an
analogy.
analogy.
Oh my God! You're misrepresenting. You're misrepresenting of what happened. It's not. We're not upset because the popular vote was subverted in a way that's allowed by the Constitution. What we're upset about is subverting the Constitution.
So the popular vote is often subverted. So I don't see much difference in subverting the popular vote and subverting the Electoral College if it's done through a means that was installed in the Constitution.
One of them is meaningless in the outcome of the election, and the other is
it's meaningless because we've made it meaningless, Hutch.
Yeah,
right. Yes. It's meaningless as a matter of law. We're talking about changing the vote that is meaningful, the Electoral College vote, and flipping it artificially for the losing candidate.
It would be a congressional vote for the president, which has happened in the past. It's not like these are just random people voting for the president. These are all people who've been voted into Congress to represent the people in their respective districts. It would just be them voting for the president rather than electors voting for the president. And you actually have no way of like ensuring that the person that a state or district votes for, that the elector is actually going to vote for that person anyway. We have faithless electors.
You
actually do. No, we actually don't. Faithless electors
pass laws.
Yeah. And you know what? You know what? Those laws don't mean anything because it's just a fine and maybe a misdemeanor if you faithlessly vote against state law. It doesn't do anything. No, every state that has laws against faithless electors, it's just a fine. It means nothing. You still cast your vote as you want it. No, they can, but they haven't. They can, but they haven't. What are they going to do? Make it a felony?
Has said that the Supreme Court has stated that that's allowed. The states
and every legal scholar agrees that electors are essentially free to vote for whoever the fuck they want to because the repercussions for voting against their state and being a faithless elector is virtually nothing.
That's up to the state.
So the Electoral College is already kind of a problematic system, but if you're arguing essentially that it's like sacrosanct and whatnot, look, Cam kind of does have a point there, but I think the context in all this is important, which is that, you know, the average American, and I'm not talking median, I'm not talking, oh, we're going to play around with numbers and stuff. The average American is making right around $31,000 a year right now, and 78% of your country is living paycheck to paycheck. But the biggest deal, the only issue I guess people should care about is like a few lawyers have an issue with, basically the Trump campaign going through and, you know, so-called stealing the election. Yeah, they have a right to contest the vote.
Did they try to steal the election, Kevin? Yes or no? Did they lose?
Did
Trump lose? Did Trump lose? Yes or no? Yeah. Did Trump lose?
So here's the thing: you have a right to contest the results of an election.
Lose the election? Yes or no?
Yeah, no, he did lose, but you have a right to contest the results, right? Is the thing. So the question is, did they go outside the bounds of that and actually, you know, try to steal it? I think the point that Cam was kind of bringing up and is basically that the Electoral College is already kind of this arbitrary system as it is. If we're talking about the popular vote, for example, you could very easily, within the bounds of legal framework in the US, fully constitutionally get somebody in power that does not have the consent of the American public in terms of the popular vote. That's easy to do. In Canada, for example, our leader only got about 40% at his height. So it's like that. Yeah, in our systems.
Yeah, it happened in 2016 and it happened in 2000. I remember it.
But here's the thing, right, Pisco? In our systems, there's a difference between what's seen as legally legitimate versus legitimacy from popularity. There's a question to be had whether that makes sense or not, but I think what's important to do is to step outside. No, what I think what's important to do is step outside.
You're both talking at the same time. Kevin, could you wrap it up in the next 20-25 seconds so we can have other people respond?
No, I'll just wrap it up by saying, you know, I know that you guys wanted to keep this on the topic, like, you know, Dylan and Downbow want to keep it on the topic at JD Vance. And the thing is,
I want to see if we can bring it back.
Yeah, what's very important here to keep in mind is that there are more issues than just this one, even if it's something you care about. And Tim Walz opened in the vice presidential debate by essentially calling for war with Iran, essentially. That's what the implication was. And JD Vance opened with saying, hey, let's reindustrialize the Rust Belt. I think that that's important, right? Do you disagree? Or is it only this one issue that matters?
Foreign policy absolutely matters. You don't care about it. You just said, who cares? Because Americans, you know, have $31,000.
Wait, I don't care. Wait, I don't care about foreign policy.
Kevin, you gotta let him respond quickly.
What I'm going to say is, thousands of Americans have bled and died for our Constitution. I'm not going to have it be sullied by a Canadian who doesn't understand the importance of our Constitution. But on your point, yes, it's true that international politics matter, global affairs matter. That's why your child's reading of what Tim Walz's statement was at the beginning there, as though that we're saying we're absolutely going to go to war with Iran, when on the other side of the equation, you have JD Vance, who is explicitly being way more hawkish than the administration is currently, or Kamala Harris is, or Tim Walz is for that matter, on Iran, saying like explicitly saying we need to be in Israel even further. We need to support Israel even further. He's supported by Netanyahu, the regime. How can you possibly say that what would be preferable, if what you care about is war with Iran, to have Donald Trump, who is actually egging on war with Iran?
No, I didn't say that Trump would be preferable. I was just providing context there. The reality is Israel supports both sides. They're just that Trump is, yes, you're right, more on their side. Here's the thing about Trump, though. Here's the one thing about Trump. I'm not saying that he's going to do this, but he is a known wild card. That's why they don't like him. That's why the Pentagon, the establishment, the ruling class don't really like him too much, because, yes, he's on the record. We're going to, support Israel even more than Kamala wants to. But he does have a proven track record of sometimes doing the opposite and actually doing diplomacy. I mean, he did do the Abraham Accords. He did actually do the Hanoi summit. Yeah, he has a big mouth. He has a big mouth about, rah, we're going to go and bomb people and stuff. But in reality, and he did do that. But you look at Kamala Harris, she has Dick Cheney's endorsement. What does that say to you? What does that say to you?
What is more?
Go ahead.
Well, what is more important? Like Donald Trump, when he came into office, he dropped more bombs in Somalia, for example, in his first year than Obama's entire 8 years. And you seem to think that an endorsement from Cheney because he thinks Donald Trump is insane, not because he agrees with Kamala's policies. You think that matters less? You think that matters more than what Trump did when he was in office?
He thinks that Trump is insane because Trump occasionally, I'm not saying he always does this, he usually toes the line, but occasionally will sit down with opponents of the U.S. And here's the thing. Who are you going to do diplomacy with?
That is not what Dick Cheney thinks. That's not why Dick Cheney thinks Trump is insane.
What's up? I hear you.
Josiah, here's the thing. You do diplomacy with people that you are rivals with, right? It's not, oh, we did diplomacy with the UK and Israel. Great. Okay. No, what matters is actually sitting down with, your rivals and working something out, right? That's kind of what's important. And yeah, Trump did do that. And guess what? He also did the other stuff. You're right. He also did the other stuff too. I'm not saying that.
The Iran nuclear deal, Kevin? Like the Iran nuclear deal?
I'm not saying that he's somebody who's like he's going to just focus on reindustrializing the Rust Belt and he's going to do all that other stuff and leave it up to Israel and stuff to deal with. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is Tim Walz and Harris are on the record. They are 100% behind Israel, essentially. Now, Donald Trump is on the record officially saying that he is, yet he's somebody who has a proven record of when he gets in power,
tearing up the Iran nuclear
doing the opposite and actually sitting down. Okay. And that's important context
name
here.
One thing,
and you can talk all your stuff about legal theory, but lives are on the line if there's a war in Iran.
Name one.
We gotta hold this. I'm sorry, Pisco. We're supposed to be talking about JD Vance. We've now pivoted all the way over to foreign policy. That was supposed to be one of the bonus topics. I'm sorry to shut that down, but do you guys want to have that as the bonus topic instead of FEMA if you guys are interested in foreign policy?
I prefer that over FEMA.
They're both very relevant, though, right? I mean,
they're both relevant, but it seems like you guys are trying to go over to foreign policy anyway.
Foreign policy.
They gave $7.5 billion to Israel, and they gave
$750 Let's bring back a JD Vance. Let's go. We'll start the foreign policy section with that. Okay? Does that mean okay? Fantastic. Back to JD Vance. I want to. Hutch, I did want to quickly throw something out. A question to RC. Actually, I was interested. RC, you were talking about like one thing that you liked about JD Vance. It's probably something that you probably also like about Trump is an outsider. This is not somebody who comes from the traditional political establishment. What are the things that make that more beneficial than the time that Tim Walz has spent in office? Because JD Vance has only served 2 years in the Senate. What is the benefits of being an outsider versus the political experience Tim Walz has?
Well, the benefits of being an outsider is just that you have different experience in the private sector. I think that that's a very beneficial use to put into our government versus people that, like I said, it's very questionable where their massive amounts of income are coming from as they're just public servants for serving for us, serving for the country. And I think that having the experience of running a company, a successful company at that, and knowing how to manage the people, it is very necessary for the country. I think for any
concerned about his ties to Peter Thiel? Are you concerned about his ties to Peter Thiel?
Why should I be?
Because Peter Thiel's kind of associated with a crowd that, for example, is very hawkish with respect to Israel. It's very like this kind of tech fascism, Curtis Yarvin type situation. Are you at all? I mean, there are a lot of reasons.
He was associated with him years ago when he was against Trump. So he's changed.
So do you have any problem with or suspicion of JD Vance's previous associations with these individuals?
Well, it sounds like you're operating in the field of hearsay. If you have a concrete reason for me to combat with why I should be worried about that, then I can contend with it. But I'm not going to contend with hearsay.
Well, you're saying that he has good business associations and that he's learned a lot from running these successful business ventures. And I'm telling you that there's a lot of criticism, rightly or wrongly, some related to his association with, for example, Peter Thiel, who is known to be, I think that this is not even up for debate, pretty hawkish on Israel. And I'm wondering if that concerns you.
So, Pisco, do you have like a crime he committed or anything shady he did specifically? Yeah. Or we're just going off of like conjecture?
So what we're talking about, is Or,
no,
so what we're talking about is
he's right about
associations.
that. But he's changed his view over
you're
the
not
years. If you
implicating
look at
him of
JD
anything.
Vance in 2018, it's completely different than what he's saying today. And the question is he lying or did he change?
Okay, here's let me simplify it. Two things to Pisco, and then I want to go down the list because Lactoid, Cam, and Hutch have been waiting. Pisco, number one, do you buy that JD Vance has changed since he shifted to a more pro-Trump from anti-Trump Republican position, and that could have impacted these connections to Peter Thiel? And why would these connections matter in the first place?
Yeah, so I think that what's the phrase in Spanish? I know it. Dime con quién tú andas y te diré quién eres, which means tell me with who you go and I'll tell you who you are. There's this much ado about like, well, these are just business as usual. These are politicians. And I'm just saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're going to look at the history of Kamala Harris or these people and say that, it's a boon, actually, it's a benefit to JD Vance that he has these business connections or he has his previous associations. Let's talk about them and see what benefit they are. And let's actually dig deeper.
Sounds like a conspiracy theory.
I'm not saying that. I think, by the way, that
wait, he was associated with him. He worked in VC.
No, I know that, Kevin. But what I'm saying is a conspiracy theory. Is like I'm not contending that JD Vance hung out with Peter Thiel or anything like that. But what I'm saying is like, oh yeah, like just because Peter Thiel might have been involved in some shady stuff, JD Vance must be just as bad and also doing shady shit, right? You don't have anything to implicate him. It's all just conjecture. And by the way, Dylan, the thing I was going to say earlier, I'll just get it out now.
Cam, I do want to. It was a question directly to Pisco. I do have you on the list.
Go ahead.
You can go next. I just want to make sure he has time to finish.
Directly to I'm sorry, RC, who was promoting, saying these are benefit, working for these VCs, it shows he's an outsider. And what I'm hearing also is like, well, he's changed completely from when he was running those VCs. And so what I want is a coherent message about why we should think of these previous associations or this previous business is a boon as opposed to being some kind of baggage where he's beholden to these actors, which Kevin seems to think he might have been if he hadn't changed his view. On the specific question, the other question that Dylan asked, which was, do you think he's changed? I think he's power hungry. Just like he said that Trump was America's Hitler, I think he'll say anything or everything to anybody in order to get power and to stay with power. And that's why I think he's a vicious politician who should resign immediately.
Okay, I want to make sure RC has a chance to respond because that was directly to RC. Then we have a lot of people. We got Cam, Lactoid, Hutch, and Kevin who are all waiting. But I'm happy that people have things they want to say. So, RC?
Sure. I'll keep it short. But I heard you say a lot. I have yet to hear you say any criticism of Peter Thiel. What is it that you have against him?
So there are people, I am not alleging this, but I know that a lot of conservatives, a lot of populist conservatives, I'm not saying I have these concerns. I have a concern about being overly hawkish on Israel, overly promoting of the hawkishness of Israel. So that's one concern that people have raised. So that's number one. That's a concrete thing that people have raised. Other people are concerned with the kind of tech influence with respect to immigration, as another example, where they're critical of the influence that they're going to just bring in a bunch of foreign labor to kind of supplant or substitute for American high-skilled labor, increase the number of visas. Those are kind of concerns that I hear a lot of populist right-wingers raise and why they're concerned about JD Vance. I'm asking you, do you share those concerns, or do you think he's changed the script, or do you think that you can't read into it?
Well, I think it's more nuanced than that. It's not so black and white. Peter Thiel is a successful businessman. He doesn't have to agree with all of Peter Thiel's personal opinions, but he's run multi-billion-dollar organizations, companies, corporations. So you can learn a lot from that and apply that to our government where, for example, the post office is failing in a destroyed organization that does not produce. It's running on a deficit. So you can learn a lot from people like Peter Thiel. He doesn't have to agree with everything about Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is not a criminal, to my understanding. Simple as that. I don't understand what's such a big issue about that.
Okay, I want to throw it over. So there's people waiting. So Hutch has been waiting. So it's going to be, I'm sorry we're doing it in a weird order, but I know what people want to respond to, so I don't want to break up the conversation. It's going to be Hutch, Cam, Lactoid. I'm sorry, he's been waiting the most, but it makes the most sense rhythmically. Then Kevin. So Hutch,
and then Econo Boy had something to say. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, just on that point, the post office is not a business. It's a public service. It's not supposed to run on a surplus or anything like that. But I wanted to take a different tact. You alluded to Vance being an outsider, someone who is experienced in the private sector. People use the same kind of argument to lobby for Trump in 2016. There's this pervasive notion it seems like in right-wing circles right now, and it's not just in right-wing circles, but that outsiders can come in with no experience in government and efficiently get things done in ways that people who have been a part of the system for years or decades maybe can't. This was just not, this just did not happen. So I would just appeal to Trump's track record. He ended up having a pretty abysmal first term in terms of his legislative agenda. The very first thing he tried to do was repeal the ACA. He failed. The only major piece of legislation that he got done was tax cuts that Republicans had been itching to do for decades. They didn't really even need him for that. I'm not sure if he played any role in actually crafting that legislation. He presided over the longest government shutdown in history, as far as I'm aware. And he was the first one-term president since 1992. So I guess my question to you is, like, where do you get this confidence that Vance, by virtue of the fact that he is an outsider, that this necessarily means that he can get in there and get stuff done?
So you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's like set people in turn. Okay. So I would ask you, what are like two of the main things you can learn from working in politics that Vance lacks?
Well, one thing that you need if you want to be an efficient lawmaker is how to actually like build coalitions and work with other politicians.
So collaboration and communication, you learn that in business. Huge. Yeah, you learn that in business. So how does he not have that skill?
He's been in Congress for 2 years and hasn't done anything.
But I'm responding to him. I would like to hear his answer. How does he not have that skill?
You're talking about private sector negotiations versus DC negotiations.
There's still human beings on both sides.
Right. If this logic were true, though, like, how does that apply to Trump? Do you think he lived up to that promise of him being this outsider that's going to be able to get in there and like force things to get done?
Yes, and I think he proved it.
In what way?
How the economy was doing, how our country was doing, how foreign nations were respecting us. I mean, he applied the same strategies that he did in the private sector as the president. And I know that we were going to potentially go into foreign countries or, foreign issues later on. But what I'm saying is that you're claiming as an outsider, they lack the experience that politicians have. But what is this experience that politicians have that private sector doesn't learn in business?
Apparently,
they learn communication, they learn negotiation.
How is that?
There's a difference between running the government and running a private corporation. Focuses on short, medium-term profits in the interests of shareholders. Okay, a government is supposed to ideally think a little bit longer term and think about social investment. So when we're talking about JD Vance versus Tim Walz, where did Tim Walz put government investment when he was the governor of Minnesota? He invested in infrastructure, he invested in climate change, he invested in children. These are good long-term investments for the country. But if you're talking about like the guy who's the CEO of Walmart, he's not just going to give away a bunch of money to random children at daycares because that's not in his short-term profit interest. It just doesn't make sense to say we should run the government like a corporation, or someone who runs a corporation can run the government. By the way, as far as I understand, JD Vance's record in the private sector is not particularly extensive, and most of his money that he got before he was a senator came from writing a book about growing up as a hillbilly. Not exactly very extensive private sector experience, at least if we're comparing JD Vance to Tim Walz, who chose a public sector route. It seems like a completely ridiculous, basically standard to say, oh, he has some private VC experience, so therefore he's better than the guy who's made what we would hopefully agree are some pretty good investments with public dollars.
And years as a corporate lawyer.
We're gonna have Lactoy quickly respond, then we're going to Cam. Then we're going to Kevin and then Econ. The only reason I'm throwing Lactoy is because he wanted to say something to that specifically.
Well, yeah, he has years of experience as a corporate lawyer as well, right? So you have someone with a background of corporate lawyer and doing VC work. It's selling a book, right? There's more than just he was at a VC firm for a little while. I mean, that is business experience. You can't deny that. And corporate law is essentially the study of how businesses function.
Being a corporate lawyer is not running a business, and neither is writing a book, right? I'm just saying RC's point is
it's litigating how they run.
No, RC's point. Now that made your point. That wasn't RC's point. RC's point was JD Vance has extensive experience running a business. That's not true. That's just not the case.
Okay, sure. This seems like hyper specific. That maybe that's the case.
That's how he's basing his vote.
No.
It makes sense to base your vote on correct things and not incorrect things.
I think what he's basing his vote on is like experience with business, right? And being a corporate attorney for several years and understanding how businesses work and litigating business issues absolutely is understanding how business works. So if we're being good faith here,
you've made a lot more sense than he has.
Well,
yeah,
sure.
Well, you made a lot more sense than he has. But you still have.
You guys have been jumping over each other the whole fucking time. Just give me a second.
I've barely spoken during this section. To be fair.
Okay, then your three allies have been jumping over each other the whole time. I think it's fair for me to jump in and build upon a point that one of my allies is making, right? I think it's absolutely the case.
To run government?
I think it absolutely. Hold on. So when RC is saying that, like, for him, having like financial literacy, understanding like how businesses are run, and wanting to run government more like a business, experience in that kind of field matters. And when you're saying, oh, he just had some VC experience, first of all, VC experience is good, right? But also he had years of experience as a corporate lawyer, which is again litigating over business issues and understanding in a very minute detail how businesses are run from a legal perspective, which is again relevant to the government work, right? If you're in the government, understanding how businesses work in a legal perspective is obviously relevant if you're going to be making laws or involved in the creation of laws. I think that's absolutely fair to say. And again, dude comes with a Yale law degree, which is like particularly more impressive than whatever Tim Walz
Summa cum laude too.
The biggest proposal coming out of the JD Vance Trump ticket is something that pretty much every business leader, every economist has said would be disastrous for the economy, which is raising a bunch of tariffs all over the place. If you want to talk about a pro-business candidate, it certainly isn't the guy who wants universal tariffs, who wants mass deportation. And so if we want to have a policy discussion, who would be better at running the government, having the levers of power of government?
Okay, we're
probably not those guys.
We are switching around, and I do want to take the opportunity.
I want to. Can I just quickly, like, I don't want to move over to, we're going to be talking about economics in a second, but I was on the list and I just really want to quickly say on the prior thing that Pisco was asking, I think Cam was absolutely right in his analysis, but I think it's hilarious how, I don't agree with John Eastman, by the way, but John Eastman, even though he believes his position is correct, he said, yeah, he would be stopped by the Supreme Court. And I think the Supreme Court really is the bulwark for our Constitution. Yet J.D. Vance is particularly better than Tim Walz on this because J.D. Vance actually supports laws to prevent court packing, which Tim Walz does not. In fact, Tim Walz is running with somebody who in the past has supported court packing.
Is court packing constitutional? No. Is court packing
Wait. Let me go. Hold on. This is not a deposition. No. Hold on. This is
constitutional, yes or no?
Dylan, can you stop him? Oh, give me a second.
Okay, we'll give you a second. Okay, I'll give you a second, but would you answer that question at the end of your second? Okay.
Yeah. So court packing is legal as potentially. Now, I don't agree with it, but potentially John Eastman's theory is legal in the same way that faithless electors are.
You believe it's legal?
When you were saying, hold on, I just said yes. I started the sentence by saying yes, and now you're going to keep
re-asking. You said no. You said you don't agree with Eastman.
Let's let him finish quickly.
No. I don't agree with Eastman. I said I don't agree with Eastman. I said I don't agree with Eastman personally, but when you were having the back and forth with Cam, you said just assume that it's legal. Isn't it bad regardless? And I understand that things can be a threat to the Constitution even if they're quote unquote legal. Eastman believed that despite the fact that what he thought was legal, he was going to be stopped by the Supreme Court. Now, imagine if Kamala Harris had her hands on the Supreme Court based on her history of statements, if she had packed it and she had filled in a bunch of people that simply put her into power if she went along that exact same route, right? She wants to remove the exact bulwark that John Eastman said would be his biggest impediment to carrying out that plan. J.D. Vance has said that he's going to protect that bulwark, right? He, in opposition to Tim Walz, who has not said that. So when you say who is the threat to the Constitution, I think the person running with the person who's in favor of packing the court and obliterating the third branch of government, I think that person's probably more of a threat to the Constitution.
I gotta give you guys. I want to make one of the libs have to respond, but only one can because we have a very short period of time on this topic, and there's three people who haven't talked.
Thank God.
Well, I was just going to say, so I think that the person who's a threat to the Constitution is J.D. Vance's running mate, the one who actually wants to terminate the Constitution, which Kamala Harris has never suggested. By the way, Kamala Harris said she was open to court packing 4 years ago. So this is the weakness of Lactoid's argument.
Last time she ran for a primary.
He thinks that it's unconstitutional, or threat to the Constitution is something which is constitutional, which she said she was open to 4 years ago. Meanwhile, 2 years ago, Trump explicitly said he'd like to terminate the Constitution to unlawfully return him to power. Lactoid doesn't give a fuck about that. It's all about what Kamala Harris might, if then else, do based on something she said 4 years ago, which is perfectly constitutional and has been done multiple times, including by the founding fathers. And by the way, Eastman, let's just be very clear. Again, I'll go back to it. Eastman said that he would violate the Electoral Count Act and he would be stopped by the Supreme Court, which means there is less legal predicate for what John Eastman wanted to do than anything that Kamala Harris.
You're mistaken. Hold on. You
have to move on, okay?
Yeah, you're mistaken. You can think that you're legally correct and still predict that a finding might be made against you. Those two are not antithetical to one another. Now, I think it's funny how you brought it back to Trump when we're talking about J.D. Vance versus Tim Walz. Which I was trying to say
you brought it. You mentioned.
Tim Walz. Yeah, J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance condemned court packing. No, J.D. Vance condemned court packing.
24, 25, 26. 27, 28.
Yelling, stop.
They're
lying. I said J.D. Vance.
They're going for a minute. They're going for a minute.
All supported court
all civilized. Well, stop. You're all civilized people, and you all know at the end you get 2 minutes uninterrupted. If you're thinking they're lying, then just call them a liar at the end. I'm sure you can all act like adults for another 5 seconds. We got a few people to go through, so we can wrap this up. Also, if people want to ask questions to any of the participants, we are taking them. If you donate at the website dylanburns.tv, we got to grift a little bit here, and you ask a question and it's not like here's a slur and a half, then we might actually read it, and we might pose it to the guests. So dylanburns.tv, that's the website. You donate and all of the funds go towards freelance war journalism in Ukraine, and we appreciate that here at Dylan Burns TV. Now we're going to throw it over to Cam Higby, who's been waiting extremely patiently.
Yeah, Pisco should take notes. So yeah, what I was going to say earlier when I raised my hand initially was just that I don't think, being the very honest and good faith person that I am, I don't think that we should say that just because Cheney endorsed Kamala Harris that means that she's a war hawk or anything like that. I think that Dick endorsed Kamala Harris because his daughter has personal beef with Donald Trump, and it's nothing more than that. I don't think that Kamala Harris aligns with Dick Cheney's beliefs or anything like that. I think it's all personal. So in addition to that, Pisco, I think it's hilarious how you're jumping all over RC, trying to get him to prove a negative. You're like, well, prove to me that JD's business dealings are actually a good thing and not a bad thing. The burden of proof's on you, bro. If you're saying that his business dealings are shady or bad or whatever, he's a war hawk for Israel, blah blah blah, whatever. That's on you, bro. You got to prove that, not RC. That's not on him. So next, Hutch, you said that Trump had an abysmal first term. I think that Trump had a great first term. He doubled child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000. He passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, caused middle classers to receive massive tax breaks, 16 to 26% for people making $15,000 to $50,000, $50,000 to $100,000, 15%. Among lots of